I guess I'll start off by asking you, how do you characterize this crisis? Because as Paul just touched upon, it's very difficult for a government being in power for 3 terms to make some of these structural changes that look like they might be necessary to really fix the problem.
And I think the federal government also isn't in charge of a lot of the levers in relation to this crisis. A lot of those levers reside at the state government level, and really they're working hard to try and make an impact when, in actual fact, they need to reach into the states and make policy changes at that level.
Is that why you're calling for more of a sort of holistic or, the states as well as federal approach with a national summit that could potentially put through some of these more effective policy changes?
Yeah, that's right. I think a national housing summit is necessary. A couple of years back, we did the same thing in relation to jobs and skills in the post-COVID era. And we really need to bring everybody together to get everybody in alignment because, I see the federal government working quite hard. There's a lot of announcements that have been made to try and make an impact in this housing crisis. But a lot of the changes reside in the state level, particularly around planning reform to try and get people to site faster. Now, I see many examples each day where we can build a home in 60 days, but it's been sitting in planning for sometimes up to 2.5 years. And we really need to get the state governments to fall into line. And my recommendation in that space is that the federal government needs to really look at penalising the states in terms of the funding that flows from the federal government to the state government so that they can really make some change. For example, if there's a pet infrastructure project that needs to be funded in a state government, this federal government should be using that as a lever to try and get the state to undertake significant planning reforms to get people to have confidence to build a new home.
And the industry has also been really hampered by the labour shortage that we're seeing in Australia. And what do we need to do at this point to help with the workforce and just have the people out there to be able to build these homes?
Yeah, I think we have lost an opportunity in the last 3 years. There has been a bit of a downturn in activity levels across Australia, probably with the exception in Western Australia. And we really lost that opportunity over the last 3 years to build capacity in our workforce. I think there is this belief in Australia that's existed for a number of years that the only way you can be successful is to have your children attend university and pursue something along those lines. And we really need some structural reform to encourage people back into trades. They are professions. They do have the ability to provide great family and outcomes and lifestyles. And it really needs to be a significant change. But unfortunately, that's going to be a long-term strategy. We need medium-term and short-term strategies. And I think some of that in the short term is looking at migration and moving some of those necessary trades into Australia to help us. Because undoubtedly, when the economic environment improves, when the interest rates further reduce, which we expect to occur in the next 9 months, there's going to be a need for significantly increased number of trades and labour to build our homes. The Property Council is forecasting that we're going to fall about 500,000 short on that National Housing Accord target of 1.2 million, and that is just going to exacerbate inflationary costs on homes if we don't find a solution to supply.
Brad,
you mentioned interest rates,
some of the more
so
favourable
how
tax settings.
Good.
I've actually got multiple non-speaking ones open.
Right. I'll take it next. I think Heidi was asking about the tax settings, but I also wanted to know about the mortgage environment.
Yeah, if we talk about tax settings first, I think what customers need is certainty, and I think that's the one thing our governments need to provide is a certain stable environments. And we hear a lot of rhetoric at the moment in the press and also from the potential returning Labor government in relation to capital gains tax, in relation to taxing of superannuation balances, and all that leads to a real negative impact on confidence within the community. There is a lot of work being done by the federal government to provide social and affordable housing, and it really is an important part of the housing crisis. But really, to get large numbers of homes, we need people in Australia. We need private enterprise. We need investors to put funding into Australia to build those homes. And creating an uncertain tax environment is not helpful in relation to achieving that goal. Shery, in relation to your question about mortgages, we saw an interest rate cut earlier this year, and it really did not have any impact on confidence amongst consumers. And I think that's really because, the cost of living crisis and customers' pressure on their home budgets, the 25 basis point cut that occurred earlier this year didn't have any impact. I think we're going to need at least another three decreases, and some positive sentiment from our Reserve Bank. I think there's a really hawkish and negative sentiment that comes out of the Reserve Bank that really isn't inspiring to the Australian consumer. We need both those things to happen before we start to see the demand that's out there in the market converted into confidence and action.